right. Welcome to another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. As always, I'm your host, Adam Smith, with Just the Tips Coaching. And as you guys have come to expect, we would normally have my co-host, our marketing director, one of our other coaches, and all-around superhuman Jen Waybor Hart with us. But Jen is not available today, and she has left all of the technical aspects in my hands. So when I screw it all up, know that it's completely Jen's fault for not being here. But welcome to the show. I'm sure longtime listener, first time guest, Carmen Richardson. Hey, Carmen.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad that you were able to do it. It's really a cool opportunity for us to get to know each other a little better, and certainly for our audience to get to know you. You and I run in some circles together, one of them being a group of the top loan originators in the country. So we've seen each other, we've met each other, we've done a couple of conferences, that kind of thing. We've probably seen each other speak at different events, those kinds of things. But to be able to do this where it's essentially one-on-one,
Yeah.
barring any interference from our friends, and I'm sure we'll get some because they'll hop on and post stupid questions and those kinds of things. So it's expected, absolutely. But just so you're aware, I don't know how much of How I Met Your Mortgage you're familiar with or have seen, but I think one of the first things, okay, what we really like to do is give our audience a taste of who you are, where you're from, why you thought the mortgage business was a good fucking idea, because nobody thinks that now, right? We did 25 years ago. Yeah, this will be cool. And then in 07, 08, we were like, well, this is stupid. And then we kept going anyway, but here we are again. This is stupid, but we just keep fucking going. So we'll keep going. So how did you get started in the mortgage space?
So it was, I was a stay-at-home mom. My daughter was 2, and I had a dear friend who I'd known since middle school who happened to be a roommate right outside of graduation. And she got into the mortgage business, and she worked from home. And I was bored. It's not really the right word my daughter was 2, but I wanted to work.
That's not boring.
It's not boring, but at the same time, we were a young little family. We didn't have a ton of money. So if you're at home all day, or you can only go to the park so much or things like that. So I thought, okay, well, I want to do something to supplement our income. Not thinking, okay, this is gonna turn into a career or anything like that. It was really just gonna be, I'll close a few loans a year and see what happens. And I tell people all the time that want to come on, I'm like, do not do it the way I did it. It was like building a house from the roof down. And I cried a lot because I started straight from home. I never went into a brick and mortar space where they teach you with a CRM and here's scripts and here's, the do's and the don'ts, any of that, none of that. So I went straight for, let's just start. And then we're going to learn this business from home as the loans come in. So wow. As you can imagine, yeah.
Okay, now wait a minute, because I do want to tell you that it's not always like that. I did get my start in another brokerage before opening my own that was brick and mortar. Went to the office every day, produced well enough to score the corner office and a bunch of stupid, producer of the month, producer of the year trophies, that kind of BS. But when I started, I was literally given an Excel spreadsheet call list, a copy of Calyx Point, which, by the way, is the exact same software it was back then 25 years ago, and a pat on the bottom. Good luck, kid.
Yeah, I hope you make it.
There was no CRM, there were no script, none of that. So it wasn't about being in a brick and mortar space, I assure you.
No. What would have been nice, and what we try to convey to people now that want to do it, because I work from home. My husband works in an office right around the corner. He walks to work, and he has probably 160 loan officers. And it does seem very appealing working from home. Of course, who wouldn't want to do that, right? But at the same time, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're not learning by just that osmosis of being around people and hearing, oh, this happened, or this is what to expect, or what happened. You're only just taking it in as you get one loan at a time. So, since then, obviously, I'm grateful that I got started. And I kind of just coasted through, by coasting, I didn't really coast. It wasn't really, again, at that time, I just didn't think it was a career. It was just, I'm going to do this. I'm going to supplement our income. so on and so forth. And then it kind of grew. Then we had the housing.
How old is your 2-year-old?
She's 22 now. She's 22 now.
Okay, so 20 years. Got it.
Yeah. So then we had the housing crisis. So I went to go work for a credit union and manage a branch of a credit union. I'd never done banking or anything. Just mortgages was really, I was passionate about it. But again, it was kind of a rough patch because I was learning from home and then we had the crisis. So I managed a branch for a while. Then I had a baby. So I stayed home for 2 years after that, and then went back to the credit union I was in during the HARP refi season because I was ready to get back into work. But I was like, I had changed I moved just only an hour south of where I lived, but St. Augustine is a fishbowl. It was at the time in 2010. It was like anytime I knocked on a door or what have you, it was, oh, we have somebody, we've had somebody for years, blah, blah. You know how it goes. It's a tiny town, but it's a big, tiny town now. And so I thought, God, I'm never going to be able to break into this. And slowly but surely I did. And then I would say in 2018, I got really serious. I was like, I don't want to just be a loan officer to say, oh, I'm a loan officer. I want to be good. I want people to know who I am so that if they think, hey, I'm going to finance my house or my child's going to finance a house or something like that, I want to be part of that conversation. So I started working with Kai McBride. Sure. And he's a rock star, as you know.
Yep.
And we worked together for quite some time. And he did a lot of great things for me. And so after that time, then I started, slowly trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to grow this business? How am I going to become a name that somebody knows when it comes to finance and stuff like that? So I got involved in the board, our local real estate board.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, and that was a slow road too, because our board is small and it was very controlled by the
there's a fishbowl inside the fishbowl.
Oh, it was crazy. The guy didn't like me at first. I mean, I could see if I pissed him off somehow, but I didn't know what I did except for breathe in his direction, and he just was not having it. But anyway, now we get along fine. But yeah, that was a slow thing. But so now I hold the education committee chair. And that's been good. That's been really good for me. I teach classes at the board to try to help some of the realtors,
That's funny because that's how Just the Tip started.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There was a time until maybe 5-7 years ago, maybe a little more, where we were only coaching real estate agents. Now, the job is obviously very, very similar.
Sure.
But when I started doing this in Colorado, there was this rumor, and it exists everywhere, and it still exists, although I'm not a big proponent, that in order to be a successful loan originator, you have to have real estate agents in your pocket. Now, I'm not a big fan of that because I think that having a business that's strictly repeat and referral, where it's mostly repeat clients and client referrals, is really important. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to source my own business. I don't ever want to be reliant on somebody else doing their lead gen work impacting my business. But that was the belief. So here we have title companies. I think Florida's a title attorney state. We actually have title companies here, and that was the MO. You would teach classes at title companies to real estate agents in order to get in front of them, eventually get them in your pocket, and eventually have a successful loan origination practice. Now, while that's not true, and for those of you that are still being taught that or coached that, or maybe you're with the core and you get up and call your 40 agents every Monday, then good for you. Mm-hmm. Actually, we talked about this a lot last week because one of the things that we still see a lot of is LOs popping in on real estate open houses. Please don't do that shit, all of you. No. And if you guys want to talk about the psychology behind that, I'm happy to do it, but same kind of mentality. Yeah. So I decided I'm going to go look at some of these classes. What are loan originators teaching real estate agents at title companies in order to get in front of them? And the first one I went to was some LO teaching teaching real estate agents how to read appraisals. Like, well, they don't need to fucking know that. That's not their job. That's your job.
That's right.
Why are you wasting their time? Their job is complicated enough. I was like, okay, it's an anomaly. It was a one-off. Let's go to another one. And the next one was a guy teaching the real estate agents about VA mortgages. Like, not their job. That's your job.
That's right.
Their job is complicated enough. And I was like, okay, so we need to hit the reset button. What would real estate agents actually want to learn? Like, How about how to get more business?
Hmm.
How to generate leads, how to do good contact management. And then obviously that evolved into social media and video and all the things. I don't know, we probably have 50 or 60 modules in our program now
Wow.
out of Ask Jen, and she's not here. And that's really the crux of it. That's how it started. Let's teach agents how to generate more leads. And maybe with a little bit of luck, I'll see some of those leads, which actually did play true. And then I started getting a lot of blowback from the LO community, like, why aren't you teaching loan originators?
Oh.
Wouldn't that be a better fit for you anyway? And of course, they were right. It is. I still consider the jobs to be very, very similar, very, very synonymous. It's about finding buyers and sellers. It's about finding buyers and borrowers. That's actually the job. And by the way, for the rest of you that don't understand that, maybe you're new to this. Maybe you work in a shop where you're just fed leads all day and you've gotten really good at chasing leads, but you don't know how to generate a fucking lead to save your life. That's the job. Everything that's a byproduct of generating leads, you can pay somebody else to do.
Yep.
Whether that's pricing out a loan or attending a home inspection or whatever the case may be, most of what happens is a byproduct of generating leads. And here's a really good one. You don't need to know how to price out a loan if you don't have a fucking borrower.
So true.
It's really that simple. You do not need to know how to negotiate an inspection if you don't have a fucking buyer or seller. So focus on the job. That's what the job actually is. And how much of what we learn obtaining a mortgage license, state and federal for those of us that do it, or a real estate license on a state level for those who do it. How much of what you learn to do that is actually applicable on a day-to-day basis? Very little.
Just staying out of jail.
Right. So focus on the job. All right. So let's flash back 20 years ago. Let's get back into the Wayback Machine here. You're working at home. You've got a 2-year-old in the background.
Yeah.
Where is the business coming from? Who are your first clients?
Just word of mouth. I'm a talker. So
We know. Oh, I'm sorry. For our audience, Carmen's a talker. For those of us that know Carmen, Carmen's a talker. We know.
So and again, let me be clear. My first 2 or 3 years, the income I generated was just enough to keep me from having to go get a physical job. It was probably $45,000 or $50,000. So I didn't do a ton of business, but it supplemented. It was doing what I was hoping it was doing, which was keeping me at home with my daughter and putting some money in the bank. So, but it was real. All of those referrals were just word of mouth, just friends, somebody that needs a refi or somebody that needs to purchase. And so it was enough to keep me strung along that I was like, okay, I'm going to have to keep learning a lot and focus a lot on continuing my education here, on getting better and knowing exactly what I'm doing. And then I will say, when I went back to work, when HARP hit, I worked for a credit union, and you have never seen a group of dedicated. The system we had, I don't even know how it worked. It was crazy. We had a scheduler who would schedule our calls every day. When I came in, I had a call every hour on the hour. So I had to have the conversation. They're HARP conversations, by the way, which were not always good. There were a lot of crying. Pleasant. No. You had to get it done in that hour. You had to run everything, get it all wrapped up, ready to go. But these people would wait 5 days to have a conversation with an LO, and the scheduler would say, you're going to talk to her on Tuesday at 1. If you miss that call, you go back into the rotation and it's another 5 days out.
Whoa.
So being on the phone that much, I will say it was a really good transition for me, because I went from, just a couple of loans a year to now I'm dialing every hour on the hour. I mean, and that's the calls that I had that went somewhere. That's not all the ones in between that were like, oh, sorry, we can't help you or what have you. So, and I did that for 2 years. So 60 million in volume a year. And I was, maybe doing 8 loans a year. And so, but when you talk to that many people, it also is going to help you decide, especially if you talk to that many people in the situation that they were in. You're either going to decide this is for me or it's not for me. I'm going to stick with this or I'm not. So I got a really good handle on is this what I want to do? And the stress that comes along with it, as you know. And really, we both know refis are not as stressful as purchases usually, but those were just emotionally exhausting because it was a rough time.
It was a rough time. People were struggling.
They were struggling, and being able to help one person and then not help the next person, lots of crying. And so I learned a lot, and that really, I think, catapulted my scenario. But working at that credit union, I also learned, the strengths and weaknesses of that particular credit union. I used to tell people, hey, I had to remind myself, this is not a mortgage company. This is a credit union with a mortgage department.
Right.
And they operate very, very differently. Choices were, a lot more limited. What we did well, but we couldn't, if it didn't fit in our box, we couldn't do it. So there was still a lot of learning to be done after that. A whole lot.
Okay. How about now? And I do want to talk about the here and now, but sure. I'm sure a lot of it, I know you still love talking.
Yeah.
Not a secret.
Yeah.
And I'll bet that regiment that was structured for you at the credit union has carried over.
Sure.
That your contact management is really solid. And that's one of the things that we're really, really big on. I probably still, decades later, make hundreds of non-transaction related outbound phone calls every week. Hundreds. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. But we touch and don't get me wrong, it obviously takes decades. And I want you guys in our audience thinking that this is something that Carmen and I just stepped into. But we've got a contact database now of probably, 18,000. And we touch them 40 to 70 times a year each.
Wow.
But because we want to be that
top of mind.
Right. That they think of when it's time to buy a home, when it's time to refinance a home, when it's time for their kids now to buy a home, or their kids, which is starting to get really weird to me that the kids are now. I am as old as my beard would let you believe. In any case, where's the business coming from now? I've got to assume it's mostly repeat and referral.
Yes, that. Okay. And, I work with a select group. I'm fortunate that in all of this time, we work with people. Sometimes we work with people because the business is there. And I'm fortunate now that I get to work with a great group of agents that are like-minded. And that's just continued to spread. So I'll get a call. So-and-so's worked with you. So-and-so said you're a great lender. I definitely too, we really try to be, and I know everybody says this, but we try to be that 5-star service where we try to do a lot for the client. We want them to feel like they're the only client we have, answering all the questions. There's no dumb questions, getting the insurance quotes, things like that. I'm fortunate I have a really strong team. And so with that, a lot of times we'll get business from the listing agents because they'll say, we don't always know what's going on. You guys have done a great job of keeping us up to date and things like that. So that's really a good bulk of it. I do get business being the committee chair for the education committee. That's been very good for me. I've gotten to, know a lot of the agents at the board, and that's been helpful. But definitely a lot of my business is our repeat.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. And, it's funny because if you guys want to be in a position where you are generating business from additional parties that you don't know that you're being introduced to through the course of a transaction, it's not complicated.
Yeah.
We have all kinds of automated, systemized things in place over the course of a transaction where everybody is kept up to speed all the time on what's going on. We're not really controlling it. It's just automatic for us. Yeah. Hey, let the agents know that the application's done, that the docs are in, that the file's in processing, that the appraisal's ordered, scheduled, received, the CD is out, the wire is out, whatever.
Yeah.
And you look like a superhero by putting forth some effort now to automate and systemize that. And there are so many things that we don't talk about inside of that. Are you letting your title company, your title people know what's going on with the loan? Are you letting the borrower's insurance agent know what's going on with the loan? It's really not hard to be a great communicator, which is really what people are looking for. This is not rocket surgery, people.
It's true. It's so true.
It just drives me nuts. And yes, absolutely, that makes an enormous impact with all of the additional third parties that you didn't know until you all came together on this one transaction.
Yep.
So yeah, that part of it is a no-brainer to me. And your business has obviously stretched. It has new tentacles reaching out. In fact, I'm going to ask you about one of your most recent clients, because from the parent of a 2-year-old working at home to now financing all of the OnlyFans content providers, it's a big deal. You knew this shit was coming, right?
I knew it was coming.
I was going to corner you about your OnlyFans clients.
No, that's perfect.
Right? Because that kind of content creation didn't even exist when we started this. We didn't have we didn't even have social media then.
No, and so we recently, to shed a little light on that, I started as a broker, and then after the housing crisis,
credit union.
Yes, and then
that's the epitome of retail, depository retail.
Yes,
right.
And then my husband co-owns the company I work for now, and we owned a broker business back then. But then obviously, you were Satan's spawn if you were a broker almost. So we went to work for a correspondent lender for quite some time, and it served us very well. It was wonderful. And until, rates got to be, it got hard to be competitive. So in the end of 2022, he bought back into the business that we sold, the broker business, and he has 2 co-owners. And so it was a change, obviously, coming back into the broker world after being in retail for so long, because you're learning all the things you can do, you can't do, who does what, and all of those things. So that particular loan, when the client came to me, obviously it was a realtor referral that I do quite a bit of business with. Buying a really big, nice house on the river, but had only been a content creator since April of 2022, but didn't become an LLC until August of 2022. Well, I already knew her business type was going to be a little bit questionable when we submitted into underwriting. So we were able to do a 1-year tax return deal, which was great. And they were super easy file, super easy.
Wow.
So yeah. That's very amazing. Interesting.
And we've had some through our history, although I think that's certainly interesting. I even remember doing one years ago for a live entertainer. I'm lacking a better term for that. In brick and mortar, right? A brick and mortar content creator. Can we call her that? And boy, I really thought the pinnacle was doing the signing at her place of business. But you have reached a whole new pinnacle here now, because we've gone into the digital space.
Yes.
We now do digital content creation in that space, and good on you. Although we've done some of those recently as well. And the income sources, the documentation from the Venmo, from the PayPal, from the 16 different sources, because we create content. We have a podcast. We have all kinds of different revenue streams.
Yeah.
I guess that's the way I'm going to describe that. It has been, we live in an interesting world.
Yes, we do. At 23, when you're making over $1 million a year, buying a house on the river.
Wow.
Yes, 23.
Okay. So that is really impressive stuff out there.
Yeah.
So it's get past how bizarre the world is that we live in. But for all of you in that space, shine on, you crazy diamonds. I love it. Absolutely. All right. So now we're back in the broker space.
Okay.
This is a permanent thing.
I
can't imagine that you're going to ever change that, see anything retail ever again. And a lot of our coaching clients ask me all the time, and I can't answer this because I started as a broker. Then I became a broker owner, and it's been about 20 years. Well, our next company anniversary will be 20. So very cool stuff. And of course, started shortly before the housing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Few years of getting our feet under us, getting that ball rolling. Housing crisis. Okay, we're going to delay really having our feet under us for a few more years.
Yeah.
And of course, we've seen some highs and lows, some
Sure.
bumps, as it were. But people ask all the time. I'm retail. I'm with Loan Depot. Nobody is anymore. There are no people running little branches with Loan Depot anymore, but let's call it guaranteed rate or whatever the case. Fairway. There are all kinds of options out there that are on the retail space where people have individual operations, and they ask all the time, should I go broker? Is it better banker? Is it better broker? Is it better wholesale? Is it better retail? I'm like, I can't tell you. I don't know. I've only ever been on the wholesale side. I do not know the answer to your question. What I usually respond with is, I think your company's culture has to be priority number one. Does this company, this branch, this operation best suit your needs and that of your clients? But here I have Carmen on the hot seat live for all of you watching. And I got to know, better broker, better banker, wholesale, retail. What do you like? What don't you like? What were the highs and lows of each one?
So both served us very well. We were with the correspondent lender we were with for quite some time. I was there 6 years, 7 years. My husband was there for over 10, had a really large team. And it served us very well. We had a phenomenal credit risk manager that basically, if we had questions, we could go. So we knew how the process was going to run. We know, okay, from start to finish, you're going to work with this many, because we had dedicated underwriters and all of that. So I loved every ounce of that. It was very great. But what I didn't know, and what I tell people all the time that are contemplating the broker world, is I didn't know how much we were leaving on the table based on business we could not do.
That was eye-opening.
Yeah. That was eye-opening for me. In fact, I had on the committee that I'm on, there's another lender on that committee, and he was like, oh, he was getting ready to leave his place of employment. And he's like, oh, I can't imagine go broker. He was like, every loan I submit, because he has a team, every loan I submit, it's 100% close rate. And I'm like, we got 100% fail rate for everything you can't do. And
that's right.
Right when we came over, I had 2 no score loans, which we couldn't do at our previous place. And do I think that's going to be the bulk of my business? No, but it's 2 deals that I was able to help, and my clients were, I was able to help them, and I was able to help the realtor. Then I had a no doc loan, which that was almost unheard of. Could have never done that. And that was just within 2 months of is coming back to the broker space, just those 3 situations. And ever since then, it's been a multitude of different things just like that. So we can help with it. We have options now that we didn't have before. Like, we can help disabled veterans in the state of Florida. Their property taxes are fully waived. And so we've got some outlets that will allow us to waive them up front so that we don't have to count it into their
GTI. Into the income ratio. Very cool. Yeah.
And that is unheard of in the retail space.
Sure. Or whether you're a retail correspondent, a credit union, they're not doing loans for OnlyFans content creators.
They're not.
Right.
And at the credit union, we only did conventional loans. Only.
Let's not even talk about the non-QM space.
That's right.
None of those arenas, avenues for nationals, investors, self-employed are being serviced in the retail space. Not well, anyway.
Not well. No, we brokered it out. And when you only broker, in my opinion, based on my experience, when you broker and it's just a small portion of, because you're having to broker it out, you're still the little man, and you're still the go-between, and you're kind of at the leisure of when they get around to it. If another retail shop is feeding this particular lender XYZ volume, and you're only giving them a small portion of that. Also too, I'll be honest, when we were still at the correspondent lender, we started brokering as rates started to really rise quickly. We started brokering to 2 different channels, and it was not a good experience. Again, it was awful. The account executive was terrible. I would ask questions, wouldn't get an answer. The only way I could get an answer from her is if I reached out to my husband, which of course, pissed me off. I'm like, he doesn't pick where the loan goes. I do. But wow. Yeah, it was
for the account executives that are subscribing. Take that one.
Yeah,
get that feather. Because you never know who you're actually talking to.
Yeah, and so it scared me at first. I thought, no, I don't want any part of this. But again, that's when you're acting as a you're a retail shop and you're brokering some loans, you get who's going to take you on, and you get that level of service. And so it was really different coming over and being a full broker. I mean, we're set up with so many different lenders. The list is so long, obviously.
Even still, right? When we think
Yeah.
about how long that list was back in 05, 6, 7, now 05, 06 anyway, and it was hundreds.
Yeah,
There were 200, 300, 400 wholesale lenders out there at the time, and now it still seems like it's a big number.
Yes,
I
it is.
probably have 50 that I do business with on the regular, 10.
Yeah, same here.
But yeah,
my husband has loan officers all over the country. So we're set up with, I would say, north of 125, only because we have a diverse group. So
sure.
We've got some who, are in Ocala. We've got some in Texas. I mean, they're a little bit spread out everywhere. So then, of course, as you're pulling these people in, somebody will say, oh, I worked with this organization and they were good. We'd like to get signed up with them. So, but again, ideally, I work with less than 10 usually on the regular.
Agreed. I would say that that's pretty accurate. All right, let's figure out how to close on something cool, future, tech, possible. What do you think is coming in the next 18 months that's going to revolutionize what you do, what I do, what Kai does, what LOs do, what agents do? What's the next greatest thing? Tell me where you see. Okay, where are we going?
I think the possibilities are endless. Just I saw something the other day. I was telling my husband, I saw something the other day where a guy said, hey, I own this company. So he's telling the prompt, ChatGPT. He's like, okay, I own this mortgage company. I want you to compare. I want you to review this mortgage company and this mortgage company's website, search it for weaknesses and SEO strengths and all of this. And this thing spits it right out and comes back and says, so do I think some changes are going to be made to, as you are aware, we've already seen some lenders that are going to an AI model for their HELOCs. Yeah. And we can, I think the cool thing is you get to see the strengths and weaknesses of that too, because I had an attorney who was applying for that HELOC. The first time he applied, he put in his social security number wrong, had to start over. There was you can't just go in and change it.
You got to do the whole process.
Yeah. So then the second time he gets in, and it's given us no loan options, and we can't figure out why. They're like, just have him start over 3 times. So the third time on this, we finally got it. But again, that's a perfect example of where you can see, okay, that might be a little weak right now. It can do some great things, but it's got some weaknesses. I think that's only going to continue to strengthen. I think, now I think some of the lenders are going to start having AI calculate income.
That's an interesting one. Okay.
I mean, we've already seen it on some things where it's send this over and we'll calculate it. And you and I both know especially for anybody that doesn't have normal W-2 income, we're like, are they really going to calculate it? Are they going to calculate it accurately? Like, is a human being going to look this over and go, no, you can't use that, So if it checks the box, I think for a while, we're still going to do it, of course. And I hope that we continue to be necessary. I feel confident we are, but I do think AI is definitely going to have a huge role in the mortgage space soon.
Agree. And one of the things that Jen and I profess when we are working with coaching clients on our AI module is that I think it's important to understand that it's not truly artificial intelligence. Now, it is the intelligence of the entire wealth of knowledge of the entire globe through the history of mankind. It knows everything, but a computer is dumb. It only knows what we tell it. AI, however, we have told everything that every human has ever known through our existence. Yeah. So there, I guess you could say it's knowledgeable, right? Let's put it that way. But I think the really important piece of this is that for those of you that are reluctant or resistant, or at least for the love of God, go through Bard, go through ChatGPT, go through one of the systems, and at least have it build out your perfect client avatar that will teach you how it works, how to teach it about you, your company, these kinds of things. But AI is not going to take our jobs.
No.
People using AI are going to take your job.
Yes.
That's the big differentiator right now. I could be wrong 10 years from now. I'll either be dead or retired anyway, so it won't matter.
It won't matter.
It won't matter. But please, for those of you that are resistant to it, reluctant, and we're Gen X, we are fucking reluctant to it because we watched Joshua nearly blow up the world in war games. Right? We are AI reluctant. How about a nice game of chess? Right?
Honestly, the people that are reluctant to it, I just taught a class at the board recently on it, and even if you use it for nothing else but to make your life simpler, the things it can do, just to, especially for agents, the listings.
The list is so long.
Yeah. It's so long. All of the stuff, the tedious stuff you don't want to do, use it as an assistant. Make it your assistant.
I had a great conversation this past week with Steve Green, and Steve and I used to teach a lot of stuff together, and a lot of where the initial development beyond contact management for Just the Tips was stuff Steve and I had worked on together, Kai included, Rex included. A lot of brain power went into some of the introductory content here at Just the Tips. But I'm talking to Steve last week, and he has a fairly new agent that had a great listing on a big piece of land, wrote the description of the house, could not sell the fucking house. Mm-hmm. Steve said, let's put it into AI and see what happens. And AI focused on the land because this big piece of land at this price was virtually unheard of in his market, and it immediately sold.
Wow.
Right. So agents, do take advantage. There's so much in your business that AI could be doing for you. And that's a really, really good example of one of the things that we need to be embracing. We need to be learning how to manipulate. If nothing else, be more productive.
Yes.
In the amount of time you're spending, or be as productive and spend less time. Start using AI to buy some of your life back, whatever it is. But Carmen, that's a killer one. Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's not easy to carve out this kind of time on a Monday. Actually, it's Monday afternoon where you are, but neither here nor there. And I know on top of talking about AI and some other things, Jen will absolutely slit my throat if I don't bring our audience up to speed on some things going on at Just the Tips, including next Friday, so less than 2 weeks from now, the Social Media Day Denver conference. And for those of you that aren't familiar, the Social Media Day holiday in June is actually a global event. And there are Social Media Day conferences all over the place, including one here in Denver. And if you guys want to go check out socialmediadaydenver.com, you can score tickets for that, see who's speaking. As it turns out, I am speaking, and I am the only guy speaking. It is an entire day of women that circumnavigate the social media space, including an old colleague's widow. I'm so excited to meet this woman. And don't get me wrong, he died at a very, very young age. And they were still, frankly, newlyweds. But she is going to talk about the psychology, the adverse impact of social media, and how to keep yourself mentally healthy, mentally strong while doing your social media work. So a lot of really cool things going on. That's next week, Friday the 14th, here in Denver at the Auraria campus, the Metropolitan State University of Denver. And thank you to MSU for their contributions and their social media marketing degree program for all of the things that they provide for that event. As far as all the other stuff that goes on, I know Jen would be better about doing this than I am, but go check out justthetipscoaching.com for all the things. We do have our Mile High Mastermind coming up in September. You can get copies of my books, both Just the Tips and Mindset Tools for Sales. All kinds of stuff available on the website, and Jen would know it way better than I would, but I'm just glad that I was able to get us through the frickin' podcast without any significant technical glitches. All right. So, Carmen, bottom of my heart, thank you so much for doing it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. For the rest of you, you can catch us live at 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern on Mondays on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And the podcasts are uploaded Wednesdays to Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. So check us out next week. Carmen, don't go anywhere. I'm going to run our extra. I hope I'm doing this all correctly. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time.